I just noticed that my damn mic was off. Shit. Okay, so I'm gonna have to re-explain everything that I was just explaining. Damn it. Okay, so let me re. Actually, I'm gonna just restart this and re-explain it all because my damn mic was off. And then when I finish the live stream, I'm gonna just cut the. I'll just cut the stream. Damn it. Okay, so let's start this over. What I was showing you before we start over, let me just show you what I was doing. Up here, the red box here at the top, this is the old way of how we would do our flex, or not Flexbox, but how we would add a content container that goes across the page from left to right. We would have had to do it this way. Now, as you can probably guess if you were watching without the audio, when you do it this way, you have to get the width properly, right? So here, let's just redo this. Let's just redo this and start over so you can understand what the hell's going on. So we'll do all of this stuff here. And like I was doing, I'm going to put the style in here in the head. And then we have our body as usual. Okay, so in the head, Flexbox, and then meta character set UTF-8, and then meta name content of Flexbox, and then we'll put the style tags where we will do our CSS. So, like I was doing, so let's put a div, and we'll name it the class of float content, because we're going to use the float method to show you what I was just showing you there. We're going to put 3 divs in there. Okay. So again, and we can put the commented out code here saying this is the old way of making a content area, or whatever you want to call it, with floats. So we have to tell the dot float dash container, and let me put the chat up again. Dot float container, or wait, sorry, float content, my bad. Dot float content. We have to tell this div the height, and I'm going to put that border back on it. border, 3 pixels dashed red, and let's see if there's our container. So the dot float content divs. So remember, we're calling, this is going to be calling every instance of div. So whatever I do in here is going to affect all of these divs the same. And we need to tell it a height and we need to tell it a width. So, and I'm going to tell it to give it a border too so that you can see it. So first I'm going to say, first I'll say height, and I'll give it the 400 pixels. Width, I have to tell it, I have to do the math here now, right? Because what we're going to do here is we're going to use the float method to turn these boxes into 3 containers across here. And for me to make that work using this method, which is the old way, again, we're going to go into the new way, which is using Flexbox. But I'm doing this to show you where we came from and where we're going, why we use Flexbox rather than this method, so that you can fully understand what you're looking at, right? That's why I'm showing you this. We have to do all the guesswork here. So we got to give it the height, or in this case we got to give it a height because there's no content in them. But we have to give it the width, because the width is gonna, it's gonna tell it to fit in here, right? But before I give it the width, I want to give it the border so that we can see what's going on, right? So those are those 3 boxes. 1, 2, 3. See how they're bleeding out of the page, right? We got to give it the width, and the width is going to be 33 point like 6 or so %, right? Now the float, let me make this border a little bit thicker so you can see it better on your end. So now if I tell them to float left, they will stack themselves inside of the parent box so long as the width permits. So I have to keep doing this until, I know 33 will work, but as you will see, 33 leaves a little bit of space here, right? So I could come and tweak it a little bit to get it to like fit as best as I possibly can. 33.1 should work there. Now you could think of this again like having headings in them like this. And then maybe some content or something like that, right? So this would be like some content area, you know what I mean? You can have something like this going on inside of these boxes. I'm just going to paste this in all of these so you can see what's, you could have something like this going on, right? But again, what was the downfall of doing it this way? The downfall was figuring out the width. We could take the height out now because technically there is content in there, so it will just adhere to the content, right? Which is fine. See, now this one we would have to still put the damn height on it. And then messing with that is going to be also a pain. Using this method just complicates things, and this is why we use the Flexbox, which is what we're going to do now. Let me just put this back to 400 because that's going to annoy the hell out of me. Okay, so let's do the Flexbox now. Get us caught back up to where before I found out that my damn mic was not on. So this is the Flex way of doing or of making a content or content area. So let's make a div with a class of Flex, and we're going to put 3 divs in here as well. Oh, and hold on. And before we keep this moving, you got to remember, this is another downfall of the old way. If I come in here and figure out, oh, I need another 4th section, well, guess what's going to happen? It's going to get pushed down there. I have to come back up here again and get the math right to get them all to fit. You see? I'd have to keep coming back here and switching these up and playing around with it to get them all to work. It's just going to be a pain to do it this way. So let's say we do this instead, the Flexbox. I'm going to put the same headings and lorem text in there, just so that there's content in them, right? So we can see what they're going to look like, just like this, one going underneath the other, because as of now they are, well, this is their static position, right? This is their static position, how they are laid out in the HTML. But look, once I say .flex and I say display flex, guess what happens? They evenly space themselves. Now, again, the reason why they moved over here all glitchy like that is because I just need to throw a break between here and here. So now they'll work, see? So again, without the flex, right? And then with the flex. Evenly spaced out, no guesswork. Notice how I didn't have to tell any of these how to size themselves or anything. I didn't have to tell them nothing. All I had to do was tell the parent div to display itself or to display its content as flex items, and boom, done. That's all I got to do. If I throw another one of these in there, just throw two more in there. Look, it just works. No guesswork at all. And that right there is why we use Flexbox. Okay. Now, that is the whole thing where we talk about here how to start. So you can say display flex, and you're good to go. Whoops. Now I can say on the parent flex direction, and I can say column, which will put it back to displaying regular, basically, going down the page. Or I can say row, and it will display in rows. But you can't do that this way, the old way. You can't do nothing like that way. You have to manually go in and do it. This allows you to just easily and quickly change its behavior. Right? What else we gotta look at? We gotta look at flex wrap. So let's say I tell the dot flex divs. Remember, there are certain properties we can give to the parents of the Flexbox and certain ones we can give to the children. We can give it to all the children at the same time, or we could just single one of them out and give it to one of the children if that's what we need to do. Typically, that's not something that I would personally do in my design style. I typically use flex boxes in this type of manner where they're all going to be somewhat evenly used in spacing. But with that being said, let's say, because remember, these are going to automatically change their thing, right? These ones at the top, the old way, they're going to do it too, but that's just because I gave them a percentage, right? So the percentage is going to stay the same. But the Flexbox, I haven't told any of these what height or width or whatever to be at all, right? I didn't tell them anything, and they're still doing that. This damn thing. And they're still resizing themselves, right? That is because they have a flex wrap of, or the flex wrap is default as wrap. As in this, flex wrap, by default it is this. And also, because I never told these boxes to be any specific size, they're just going to automatically stay fluid, right? Because see, if I change it to no wrap, they're still going to behave like an accordion because they don't know what size to be, so they're just going to be evenly sized no matter what. Right? You can say like no wrap, wrap reverse, whatever. But they're still, unless you have to tell these things what size you want them to be if you want them to, you know, to wrap or to not be like an accordion, basically. Or you could even use a minimum width too. That should also work. So let's say we tell this flex basis 400 pixels, and let's see how that looks. Okay, so Did I change this properly? 400 pixels should be. Yeah, let me make this bigger just so that we can see. Let me just compare this and see what's real quick. There. Okay, so that's working. And let's make sure that the no wrap is also wrap. And wrap. Okay, so that's all working. Now let me get the width because I don't like that width. So for maybe a little bit less than 400 pixels, let's say 370. Okay, there. So how is this now different? I told that the flex basis means the width. It's like it's the same as saying width, right? Imagine it just like this. But let me see if that's gonna work properly as width. Yeah, width will work same way. But for Flexbox items, you can use width or flex basis. Now, certain browsers may be finicky with this. Certain browsers may want to see flex basis instead of width because we're working on a like a flex box item. So just be careful with that. But now, because we told the flex wrap to not do the accordion thing, it's gonna push items down instead of making them squish like an accordion. So this should be no wrap. But either way, because we told it the size to be, whoops, I guess I had that right, my bad. But because we told it the size that we want it to be, it's gonna push the items down. And you can say wrap reverse, and here, you won't see that. For you to see that, I have to put numbers on here. 2, 3, and 5. Okay, so right now I have it set to wrap reverse. So you'll see how when each item gets pushed down, the last item and then the second last item goes next, and so on. So it ends up going backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If I change this back to just wrap, then you'll see they go in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? But remember, for this to work, you have to tell the divs, the actual Flexbox items, what you want the width to be. If there's no width in there, then it'll just go like this. It'll just take up the full width of the, you know. So you have to tell it the width. And that's what the flex flux wrap does. Changes the behavior when it goes on to, when the, when the responsive, when it needs to be responsive, what is it going to do? Now, keep in mind that you can put things like margin on here. Margin will work on the flex items. We'll get rid of that. And what else? Flex wrap. Get rid of all this and that, and it should there. So margins will work if you want to space out the content like this, right? If you want it to be less margin, that will work. Also, padding will work here. Let me put borders on here. 2 pixels. Put some borders on there just so you can see what's going on. So margins will work. Padding will work. Right? What else? Justify content. So let's see here. If we put and let's make these, it's probably going to look horrible, but whatever. So if we say justify content, flex end, these will all move to the one side. Flex start obviously is the default as it was. Then you can say space around. You can say space in between. Okay, go away. Space around, space in between. And so on. But see, now remember, this whole thing that we just looked at here, I never really used that because you can totally just do it in a different way without having to say flex basis. In other words, giving it a width. You don't really ever, I mean, if you're using your Flexbox the way that I typically would, then there would be no real need for that because you would basically just have the width there, right? Doing that work for you, right? Like if I had it like this, and I just say margin, and I say whatever, 20 pixels, then you're going to get the evenly spaced, it's going to be evenly spaced anyway. But either way, you can do it either way you want. It doesn't matter. But that's just, different ways you can formulate it. Now, in the sorry, align items works the same way. It's just, if you have one of these things, let's say I take this one and say paragraph, Lorium, like this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to tell all of the flex divs to have a flex. Now this is going back up here. It should be one of the first ones up here, or not. Oh wait, it's going to be down here. This one, the child properties flex. I'm going to tell all of the divs to have a flex of 1. Basically telling all of the flex item divs to be the same width, all at the same time. Okay. So we can see we have one that's a lot longer than the others. Now, this might not work properly in this case. Let's find out. Because I might have to do this on the child. Let's say align items. Let's say flex end. Let's see if this is going to... Okay, yeah, it is going to work there. You can see that it resized the other boxes and pushed them all to the bottom to align that content at the bottom of the flex item, because, or sorry, the parent flex div is going to be as high as this, right? Like here, if I put a border on here, dotted, you will see that there's the flex box, right, in the dotted red line. Actually, let me change it to another color so that we already have a red one. So I will make it blue, bright blue, and I'll make it 3 pixels so you can see it better. And you'll see there's our flex box. So the more content I put in it is going to make the flex box higher, obviously. And the align items will move these things accordingly. So align items flex end, align, center. We'll put those things in the middle of the page. But again, this is something that you would not typically see me use, because what I would do in the case of me having something like this, let's just hypothetically say if I did have something like this heading 5 going long and the other one's short like that, I would make them the same size, the same height, and I would make the content in this one scrollable, or all of them scrollable. So what I would do is I would simply just say this. The height of the divs, I would make it like, say, 500 pixels, which would be this, right? And see, we have bleed off here. Well, I would simply fix that by saying overflow y scroll, which this is something we are going to learn about later on anyway. but I would just simply do this. Again, you do not typically see me having flex items that are not proportionally done. I always have them done like this in some way, but you know what I mean. If I'm using it like this anyway. So there's that. What's next now? Okay, so flex strength. Okay, so to show you some of the next ones that we're going to go over, I have to also show you something else. Well, actually, no, I don't. Let's just do this. If I give one of these flex items a class of flex 2, we could say like this would be flex 1, flex 3, 4, and so on. Then I could call that specific one and do something to it. There's another way of doing this. But let's just use this for now because it's so early in learning CSS. I don't want to throw too much at you and overcomplicate things. So let's just simply use what we know. And we know that if we give anything a class, and we can manipulate that thing, right? So flex shrink. They're all one though, so it's probably not going to work how I want it to. Instead of flex shrink, let's use flex grow and make that one 2 instead of 1. And it's not working properly. And that's not going to be a damn thing. Because see, look, when you don't tell, here, let me get rid of this for a second. When you don't tell the Flexbox what to do in terms of its size, if you have one flex item that has, like, say, in this example, way more content than the others, it'll do that, right? It'll blow the one up. How did you change only heading 5? I wasn't watching. What did I do to heading 5? Oh, shoot. Okay, yeah. You must have missed when I did this, and I gave it the height. But don't worry about that part. Don't worry about that part. We're gonna learn more about that, what I did later on, because I just made it like scrollable and messed around with it. But where was I? Yeah. So when we told all of the divs to be flex 1, like, you're like I said before, you're basically just making all of them an even size, right? saying to all of them to be flex 2, it wouldn't do anything because they all cannot be twice their size, right? And still like fit properly. So flex 1 is, because remember, we're targeting all of these divs at the same time, okay? Now, if we did something like this instead and gave all of them, like this here, will work, but what we would have to do is we would have to give every single one of these a class. So let's do that. I mean, we're just practicing and getting to know the ins and outs, right? So let's do that. Flex 1. This would be flex 3. And we're just gonna keep doing that accordingly. 4 and flex 5. Okay. So let's see now how we can play around with these. Dot flex 1. If we tell all of these to have a flex of 1, I'm just going to copy and paste this 3, 4, 5, and then change the numbers to their corresponding. What we would have is the same thing as we had before. But now, if we did this, then we get that, right? Because we're individually telling these flex items how big to be or how small to be. If they're all flex 1, then they're all going to be even. But if we tell any one of these to be, like say flex 3, for example, this one that I told flex 3 is going to be 3 times the size of the other ones. If I say flex 4, then it'll be 4 times the size of the other ones. Okay. Flex 1 back to how they work. Now remember what I did up here when I called all of the divs inside of the Flexbox. Again, if I say flex 1 on that, it's just going to make them all even. So that's the easy way of doing it. But you can individually go in and size each individual flex item however you want. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I mean, like say we have the flex 5 being the bigger one because it has more content in there. That would make some sense, right? Then we could do something like that. Flex basis we looked at. Align self is going to be the same thing as what we looked at up here with align items. It's just you're going to do it to one individual thing. Align self, you know, flex end, or, you know. Now, because we've told these though to have a height, that ain't gonna work. But now it'll work if I get rid of the height. The one that I put flex end on was 1, see? And now it's sitting at the flex end. If I say flex start, then it's going to sit up here at the top. These ones are still sitting center. So that's why they're sitting there. Where is it? See? Align item center. What else? Flex basis. Align self. That's pretty much the ins and outs and gist of it. So let's bring this back to looking more to being a little bit more basic because we kind of have a lot of stuff going on in here. So we don't need to align the items. We can keep the border, we can keep the margin. And we can put the height back on here. Right? Flexbox is really, really simple to use. And we can get rid of all of these telling the individual flex items what to do. Because we really, in this case, just want the flex to be one. Well, unless we wanted this last one to be bigger, but you know. Flexbox is really simple to use because it just gives you the ease of use and control over what you're doing, as you can see, as opposed to the first method that we used. You can't do any of the stuff that we just did with this. You know, with Flexbox. Flexbox is way easier to use and deploy than the old method is. So that's pretty much the gist of today. And next, on Friday, what we'll do is we'll use it in a more, something similar like this, but we'll actually fit it into a web interface. And make it look a little bit more, you know, what's the word? Make it look a little bit more, you know, how you would actually use it. So we will do that in the next one. All right. So we will see you there. So have a good rest of your day.